Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And we are finally, there's basically six different seasons you'll find here in the mountains of Arizona. Let me just break those down for you. And we are into definitely the early spring season. It's early this year. So usually it starts the first week in March or so. Now it's the last week in February. It's at least 2-3 weeks. And I'll share why that is or how to tell. But really you've got down right now, we came from winter. Winter is December, January, February. It's when all the winter evergreens, they really shine. They outshine all the others, and they've been looking fantastic. We just shifted over to early spring. So I know spring is still 3 weeks off, but early spring is definitely, you're seeing the winter blooming plants going. So you're seeing the daffodils are coming out of the ground. Daffodils, the peonies are right behind them, right, just elongating tremendously right now. My winter blooming jasmines, the camellias, all these early spring seasons, they're growing or blooming. I noticed that my akebia, 5-leaf akebia, it's an evergreen vine. It's a strong, fast growing vine. It's put on already in the last week at least a foot and a half of growth. That's early spring. Early spring is defined by bright days, but chilly nights. It can still be frosty. You can even see a snow every once in a while, but plants are growing. Those early spring plants, they love that. So pansies, they look fantastic right now, and they're actively growing no matter how cold it is at night, or now no matter how much kind of weather event we get. They're going to bloom no matter what. That's early spring. That goes through towards the end of April. Then we go to actual spring season. May and June is actually spring. And so you're seeing everything go in the ground then. So your tomatoes go in, we're past the risk of frost. And now we're seeing everything can be planted. So all your zinnias, the blooming things in your containers, all of the spring blooming, I mean, red buds and crab apples, everything will be blooming and growing and actively putting on new foliage. It's obviously spring, and we all want to be outdoors, including your plants. They want to grow. Then you shift over to, I defined June as its own planting season. It's perennial month. So June is, I have perennials right now, and they look pretty good. The peonies, they're here. This is the time to plant them. This is the time to buy them. But they're here, but they aren't in bloom yet. They're just actively growing. So they're fully rooted. They're robust. They're growing like crazy, but they're not in bloom. In June, all the perennials are in bloom. You don't have to read the tag going, oh yeah, it grows this big. I can almost smell the color by looking at the tag. No. In June, everything is blooming, and you can touch and taste and smell, and you can just see what perennials are those things that come back year after year. So plant it once and you're done. So annuals are those things that look good for the annual for the year, and then they die in the winter basically. So that's the difference. Then you've got summer. Summer is June through really sometime in September is summer. So summer plants are crepe myrtles and the yuccas and agaves. They're growing like crazy. All that heat loving. Oh my gosh, make it hotter, please. I want to grow now. That's roses put on a whole nother set of flowers. Your smoke bush. There's a whole series of summer blooming plants that are fabulous, brightest colors of the year right then. Then you go into fall season. That's when your aspens and maples and all your service berries are all looking fall color. Even your shrubs that were blooming back in the summer and in the spring, they've got fabulous color. So your lilacs, they're starting to heavily bud up right now. They'll be in bloom in a few days, but then they go into a nice green shrub, and then they have this great fall color, this aspen gold fall color. So that's fall season. Then you're back into winter again, winter evergreen. So it was early spring, which is now, You've got spring, the traditional planting. It's when everyone puts everything in. Then you've got perennial month, June. Then you've got summer blooming things, fall color, and then winter evergreens. That's 6 seasons. So, and it's because of the altitude, the brightness, and the dryness. We just have, I don't know. That's why we live here. It's just so beautiful every month of the year. It's glorious. We don't get hot like Phoenix. We don't get bitter cold like Wyoming. Oh my gosh. Actually, a lot of Wyomans, they actually winter here in the Prescott, the northern, Arizona area. And so it's kind of a beautiful place to be. Now, I mentioned, how do you know? Ken, come on. It's going to be cold. There's got to be one more storm, one more system coming. Yeah, well, March is typically one of our wettest months of the entire year. So yeah, we will see another storm. We need to see another storm. We need more moisture. So bring it. I'll take it. The snows of March are very heavy and they don't last on the ground very long. They snow and then they melt and go away. And so it's a really good, healthy type of moisture that your landscapes, especially your trees, your evergreens, really need. And so they're counting on that. We need it. But some things are blooming and they're all actively growing. The ground is thawed and it's not going to freeze again. So the plants, they know this. They're going to, you know what? I'm going to start growing because I think it's going to be spring pretty quick. The bees, you'll notice the honeybees, they're out foraging. They're really hungry right now. So anything that's in bloom, even a remote bit of bloom, they're going to go after. We just had flowering heath. You only find this particular alpine perennial. It's like an evergreen shrub. That's a perennial. It's an evergreen thing that stays up about knee high and gets kind of 3 by 3 by 3 or 2 foot high by 3 foot wide. Beautiful alpine plant, gorgeous. You only see it this time of the year. Right now, if you were to wait until the traditional spring season, May, I won't have any of those. But if you want to encourage or help your pollinators out there first of spring, put a heath in. They're in full bloom right now, and the bee literally will bring them off the truck. The bees will follow us through the nursery, chasing this beautiful little plant. It's got bell-shaped flowers, just like manzanita does. It looks the same. And then when it's done blooming, usually the end of May or so, it has this beautiful fern looking foliage to it. It's just a really handsome, pretty plant. Comes in pink and white, basically. It's a great little plant. You know it's spring when the heath starts to bloom. You know it's spring when the peonies start to elongate from their containers or from the ground. So they're active. They're not blooming yet, but you can see them actively growing. They'll literally grow. I mean, my Ito peonies, they'll grow 5 feet. I mean, not 5 feet, maybe 4 feet. They get massive with these great big flowers that are as big as your hand. Then your traditional English peonies are the same. They're just cuter. They're shorter. They're less than knee high. And so they have more flowers, but they aren't nearly as large as an Ito peony. So there's different types, but it's spring when they start to grow. And so when your rosemary starts to bloom, it's one of the first things to bloom. That'll be within days. It'll be in bloom with that beautiful kind of lavendery, violet kind of blue color to it. And the bees will be all over it going, oh, finally something to eat. I've been hungry. I'm going to take this back to the hive and feed the queen. So we'll make honey together. So it's that kind of unfortunately, another indication is when bugs come out or when gophers are out. So I'm getting quite a few customers coming in with, oh my gosh, I don't know where all these pocket gophers came from. I can tell you, it's early spring. They've been hibernating real deep underground, and now all of a sudden they're right up, hungry because they've been hibernating and eating the roots off of your trees and shrubs. And so that's nothing to don't ignore those, because they can kill plants if left unchecked. But they're very actively growing, and mama has had babies. And they're all now, you went from 1 or 2 in the ground. Now they came out with a whole family in spring. And now there's just all this activity. You need to deal with those. If you need help with that, come see us. We're here at the Garden Center for you. We'll help you thin the numbers.
Let's talk poop. Hey, I'm Tommy at Waters Garden Center. Ken and Lisa are out right now, so I snuck in to remind you that it's time to add some manure to your garden. It's been a wet winter, and your soil is, well, pooped. Waters Barnyard Manure adds nutrients to get your garden growing. It's organic and odorless, so we really can say our poop don't stink. Buy 6 bags or more. Now that's a load of crap.
Tommy, what's going on?
Oh, poop, gotta go. Natural, safe, odorless, and organic at Waters Garden Center.
You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are your neighbors, your friends? What's your family talking about as they're hiking around, talking, looking at their gardens? So Lisa comes with those garden questions. Lisa, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Me too.
Are you feeling spring in the air, or are you
yeah.
not feeling spring in the air?
Definitely feeling spring in the air. It's things are definitely setting their buds. Some things are starting to open.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of you saw the winter blooming jasmine in the backyard.
Yeah,
glorious.
yeah.
Beautiful.
It's always the first thing to bloom, and it is definitely in bloom.
And I saw that you have an entire pickup truck full of debris you've been cleaning up. Rake. You can't get a trash bag big enough when you clean it up.
No, we definitely needed to do some yard cleanup. And it was kind of out of control.
Like leaving that stuff behind for the birds, the worms. It composts down eventually. It just kind of, I don't like it all clean and neat.
It's not sparkling, but at least I can see what's there.
Yeah. Okay.
The raspberries and blackberries had taken over the yard.
True.
They needed to be cut way back. So.
You didn't.
I did.
So here, folks, we have a difference of opinion. I love my plants neat and clean and organized, and she likes them wild and taken over. And then I like my soil and ground covers wild and grown. She likes her soils neat and clean. So between the two of us, we have a good looking yard.
We do. But we tend to battle each other periodically on that. But that's okay.
Yep. We just have to bring it all upstairs. You know, it's this classic classic half-acre yard cut into the side of the hill. It's overlooking the dells, beautiful vistas, but you got to hike from the top to the bottom of the property. And so when you fill up a trash bag at the bottom, you got to haul that thing all the way up. It takes a bit.
I always have to remind myself because we get these great big huge trash bags, and I'm like, I can put more in there.
That's right, you can.
And then I go to carry them up the hill, and I can't get them up the hill.
Yeah, it looks good. So what are people talking about? What kind of garden questions are we sharing with the listeners tuned in?
You betcha. Well, Diana has some empty pots in front of her house, and she's looking for some nice cool season color that she can put in there that will last for a while and just brighten up the front of her house.
Yeah, Diana, great question. So it's time. So you're seeing, we probably have maybe a quarter of a greenhouse filled with colorful things, and then a whole bunch of other green stuff. So the things that are blooming right now that sounds like you're tired of your boring winter looking, you want them to look like spring, and you want to get your hands dirty. We're gardeners. We like doing that. Where are those gloves? Ooh, they're all stiff from last year's dirt. Time to wash them. Time for a new garden hat. The gross stained one is like, maybe it's a new season, new hats, new gloves. So what can you plant? So you've got Linton Rose. What's the botanical on that? Heuchera? No, not Heuchera.
No, it's Linton.
Linton Rose. Okay, you got that. You've got hellebores. That's the botanical name on that.
Jeez.
The common name is
gotta
Linton
get back
Rose.
into spring mode.
There you go. So that's a good evergreen perennial flower bloom in full bloom. It will bloom for another 2 months. It's crazy, beautiful. Pansies, of course. Violas. Your grandparents called those Johnny jump ups. So it's the same plant. Those are good. You've got kale or ornamental cabbages. stunning. We've got some that are way bigger than your hand. Glorious. They'll fill up a pot like boom, just like that. What else? Snapdragons.
Snapdragons.
They got to be close to 2 feet tall and glorious bloom. That's another one. Stock. Oh yeah, the bees were loving the stock. It's fragrant. It's basically a snapdragon with fragrance. I mean, snaps, if you get close enough and you embed your nose into it, maybe there's a fragrance because the color is so bright. I think you envision fragrance, so you think you smell it, but stock, it smells really good.
Yeah, and the great thing about snapdragons and stock is they're both animal resistant.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas your pansies and your ornamental kale, not so much.
Be careful where you plant them.
Yeah.
So you want some protection.
Oh, we also have some dianthus.
Oh, it's another good animal resistant one.
And we got the rainbow ascot euphorbias.
Oh, very nice.
Actually.
So Diana, stop asking questions and drive across town and get you to fill up your pot. So you might take a quick measurement. We can help you design it if you want. So we're here for you.
Sure.
If you're doing containers, a little insider tip, you might want to get a bag of Water's potting soil for containers, because potting soil, it gets old. And so you kind of want to freshen and add some vigor back into those containers, because they've been sitting there all winter. They're going to be dry and crusty and gross, and they're not going to grow much. Some freshness, that top layer, or if it's a small pot, just the whole thing, just put all new fresh soil. You'll be happy that you did that, because your plants will be so much nicer. Anyway, Diana, I hope that helps her out.
I think so.
Yeah.
Another one I thought of would be heath.
Oh, of course. Yeah, those are
We got the white and the pink heath in right now.
One heath. It's glorious.
Fill the whole pot.
Fill the whole pot. They're so beautiful.
Right.
Pansies, we grew, not pansies, peonies, we grow in the pot. All those perennial looking things. Yeah.
So definitely come check it out, because we have a lot of nice stuff in. Okay, our next question is from John. He wants to know about the tree and shrub drench for scale and for borer. So his main question is because it's been so dry, do you need to water before that is applied?
Yeah.
And is now a good time to be putting that out?
Yeah. So we are seeing we are definitely seeing scale on the pinyon pines. It is out. It's at least 2 to 3 weeks early. Normally we don't see this until middle of March, and it's way before that. We're starting to see the indication of bark beetle, or Ips beetle. It's a bug that gets underneath the bark. They're flying around right now because it's so nice. It's been warm. They haven't hibernated. They're coming out early and going, hey, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to go eat me another ponderosa pine. I'm going to take down another pinyon pine, or just your pine trees. Those are two bugs that really like pine trees. Put your tree and shrub drench on your pine trees. It will protect them. You do it once. It should protect the tree for the entire year. It's something you can do yourself. You do not need to be an arborist. You don't need to pay someone $500, $600, $700, $800 to spray your trees. You can do this yourself for under $100. Tree and shrub drench is a systemic, and the plant takes it up and it taints the sap under the bark, the wood underneath the bark. Then it goes out to the structure of the plant and just protects it for the next year. Okay, going back to John's question though, should he water before, or how moist should things be? The plant should be hydrated. In fact, you should have been watering, John, through winter. So I'm guessing if you watered at all, you don't need to add some water. If you haven't done that, because we have seen virtually no moisture since last November, not enough to make any real difference. Yeah, you might need to hydrate that or add some water to it, so the plant is actually taking in moisture and then moving that systemic up the structure of the plant. That's what you want. If you're seeing bark beetle, if you're seeing scale, it's probably because the plant was dry and now it's an easy target. And so you're seeing this activity on plants because it's been so dry. It's unique. So you should water your landscape a couple times a month until they leaf out or bloom in spring. That's your cue. Once they put leaves or flower, that's when you go, oh, time to turn the irrigation system on. That's usually the end of March, April, somewhere in there. But until then, you should be watering a deep soak, especially things that are fairly new in the landscape. They were just put in last year. they have a smaller root structure. So they're more dependent on you because they aren't fully established. If you got a great big old spruce tree out there, yeah, probably take it and just be fine. Would it be more beautiful if you'd watered it a little bit? Yes. But can it go on its own? Yes. Will it get thin and ugly and wispy and not be as healthy looking? Yes. So if you can water and fertilize things, it really makes a difference. If you're seeing scale and bark beetle, also, while you're putting the tree and shrub food on, at the same time, fertilize those plants. Put the 744 all-purpose plant food on those, and it will make for a healthy tree that's got good vigor, good growth. Good healthy tree can take on things like that by itself with a little bit of care and effort on your part. Great questions this week, Lisa.
Fruit cocktail trees turn any backyard into a veritable farmer's market.
At Waters, we've grafted onto one tree different types of cherries, apples, and pears for easy backyard fruit picking.
These small fruit trees grow in containers just off the patio in smaller yards. Anyone can grow a fruit cocktail tree.
You'll find braided cocktail trees with multiple fruits beautifully braided into one tree.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So we are in the early spring planting season. This is the time. We just sold a record number of fruit trees. We had a fruit tree drop, 3 weeks ago? So literally, 30 or 40 of them just online, and then another 30 or 40 in the store. It's time to put fruit trees in the ground. It's time to start putting your flowering early spring plants, red buds and crab apples and service berries and all those early spring bloomers. They announce that spring is here. You want to put those in the ground before they wake up. So they're heavily budded. In fact, we had to bring all the fruit trees out of the greenhouse. We had them in there for the comfort of gardeners so they could shop them easily, no matter the weather or wind. But they were starting to get tricked into blooming. The apricots were starting to bloom. I went, okay, doesn't matter. Gardeners have to go shop for them out there in the tree racks, no matter the weather, because we need to slow these things down. So it's right there. The buds are gigantic. The flower buds are gigantic on the fruit trees. The leaf buds are right behind that. Those are huge as well. And so you really do, you should feel the urgency right now to start planting your early spring blooming trees and shrubs mainly. So you can hold off on flowers because they grow so fast. You can wait, but you only get one shot at trees. They grow generally in the spring, and then they can grow a little bit more, but basically they grow in the spring. And if you wait to plant those until they're leafed out or until they're blooming, you have more chance of what we call transplant shock. So these tender new leaves are exposed to dry, windy, cold, extreme climates of early spring here in the mountains, and they can literally freak out. They just go, oh my gosh, what is going on? And so they tend to shrivel, the leaves get smaller, but if you put them in the ground, they kind of wake up there. And what happens with plants, this is all plants, but when they start to bloom or leaf early spring, right afterwards, almost immediately as they leaf out, they start to root, just like bump, just they leaf, then they root. And so you want to take advantage of every single inch or centimeter of that you can to maximize your root formation, especially before the heat of summer. So the more roots, even a little bit extra roots, makes a big difference on how those plants react in the summer, basically July, August. And then if you're even hoping to have fruit, you need to put those in the ground now. And so fruit trees typically need to be 5 to 7 years old. They really need to be about 5 years old before they're old enough to start to actually set fruit. Before that, they'll flower, but they really don't have a root structure. There's the trunk is not thick enough to really hold up fruit. So you really shouldn't let them fruit until they're older. Once they're about 5 years old, they get enough roots, they're strong enough, they got the scaffolding or the structure that trees are famous for holding all that weight, then you let them load up. Well, all the trees we have here at Waters Garden Center, they're all at least that old or older. Some of them are 10, 15 years old, the big ones. And so those are, if you plant one of those right now, they'll actually fruit for you right there in the ground this year. No waiting. Right now, we'll be picking fruit in July. Here we go. I'm going to have plums. They're going to melt in my mouth. They're going to be so good. And so, or apples or pears or cherries or nectarines or cherry. I mean, you can plant those now. And so it's important. I would say also it's time to really get your soils ready. I mean, you're really days away before you can start putting garlics and potatoes and your pansies and all these early kales, snapdragons. I've got the most beautiful snapdragons you've seen. They're glorious in full bloom. You can plant those as soon as your soil is ready. So if you're thinking about adding some potting soil to your raised beds, do it now. If you're thinking about amending your vegetable soils with manures or another 2 to 3 inch layer of composted material, I'm just quoting the material, the book to you, 2 to 3 inch material tilled down to 1 or turned over 1 shovel's depth into the soil before planting. That's what you need to do. And you should feel the urgency because let's face it, it's basically March is planting season. It's time to go. Just stop stalling. Get out there. Put that coffee cup. Don't bake any more cookies. It's time to be outside in the fresh air and just cleaning up, kind of getting things ready, getting the soil prepped, and then starting to plant those trees and shrubs. Really important to get the lilacs, the forsythia, flowering quince, all these early spring bloomers. You can put those in the ground now. And I sell most of them when they're in full bloom. We just put them on end caps, and then every cart will have one because they smell so good. But to my friends, you're tuned in, plant them before they're in bloom so they don't drop their flowers. They keep blooming longer because they wake up in the yard going, oh, I don't remember this, but yeah, I'll just bloom here. This feels pretty good. I'll just go for it. And so that's when you start to do that. So anyway, it's time. That's how you tell when it's spring and what to plant now.
Hi, Waters with the plants of the week and our double pink Linton rose.
Stunning double pink flowers dangle from this amazing perennial.
And this flower stands apart from the rest for its tremendous color impact that starts in midwinter and then holds its blooms right through spring.
So tough it's rarely bothered by bugs and completely deer-proof.
You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And back in the studio is Lisa Waters Lain. What you doing? Your nose is in the flowers? What's going on here?
It smelled good.
Yeah, no, the camera's capturing all that. So
I just, you don't think of pansies having a fragrance, but they actually
do. Very
do.
fragrant. Yeah.
So I was like, what was that smell?
So Lisa comes and just shares her segment. The entire studio does smell of pansy. So it's got a great scent to it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're edible, they're fragrant, they're beautiful, and they love being planted.
Right now. Yeah.
Welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you. I just grabbed this one to show people, but we have pansies in, this is kind of a yellow-red color, but we also have purple, we have pink, we have just yellow, we have white, we have all colors out there, pansies. And we also have violets, the little Johnny jump ups, which have the 2 tones to them, which are real pretty.
Cute ones.
Yeah.
The cousins.
Snapdragon. It's just that time of year and the weather's been beautiful. So it's a really good time to put those flowers in and brighten up your house and
So share with folks if they come in and let's say this weekend they would do some gardening. If
Sure.
they've been pent up for 3 months, now they want to go out in the gardens and plant some things. Their containers are looking terrible,
Mhm.
just dead twigs in there, and they plant. Do people need to be worried if we get another snow or another cold front or another? Do they have to be
Mhm.
worried about
So
these plants?
the plants that we have in now, the pansies, snapdragons, violas, they like the cool
They do,
weather.
yeah.
And pansies actually can take snow sitting right on top of them, and they're perfectly fine. If you're really worried, you could throw some frost cloth over them if you're really worried about the blossoms. But now is the time to be putting these guys in. They like that cool season, and now's
Yeah.
get them in so you can enjoy them.
Now I find people make a mistake. Newbies make a mistake. So we planted our pansies last October
Mhm.
so we can enjoy the color right through winter. And they've been in solid bloom right out there in the yard, never even thought about not being out of bloom.
Right.
And so a lot of folks new to the area see that and they're going, oh, those have been so pretty. I want to go to the nursery. I'm going to go down to Waters. I'm going to get some pansies. And they're coming the end of April, 1st of May, and they get the very, very last crop of pansies. They put them in the ground and they'll bloom for beautifully, magnificently for a month. But sometime in June, they don't like the heat.
No.
So once it gets up to 92, 95, I don't care how much you water them. They're going to lay over and they're going to just go, I am so hot. And they just die like one afternoon. Boom. They were blooming in the morning, dead, like brown in the afternoon. And they get discouraged. Well, you should have planted them as early as possible.
Right.
That's the secret. So now, because you get more weeks, more months, more days, a little more enjoyment, more fragrance out of your pansies than waiting until the traditional spring season. These are early spring blooming flowers, not May blooming.
Right.
Flowers. They'll
So
bloom
now
in
is the time to put them in and enjoy them.
Yeah.
And that's true of, we've got some cool season veggies in
True,
as well.
That's good. Yeah.
So lettuce, kales, broccoli, things like that. Now is the time to be getting those guys in as well.
I would say herbs.
Yeah.
We've got some early. So parsley, it does better. Kale does better by planting them early. They taste better. The lettuces, the spinaches taste better when you get cool nights. It kind of makes them real sweet. Once we get closer into spring and they start to bolt and they elongate,
they get bitter.
They get an off flavor, and they're not near. They're maybe as healthy, but you want them to taste good and be healthy for you, not gross taste anyway.
Yeah, so definitely time to get out, and what beautiful weather to come out to the garden center and take a look and see what's out there.
What's fun is to see. So we get bored. It's winter. It'll be 32 today. Yay. It's not very pleasant out. But to see the weather turn and all the gardeners coming back, your friends are in.
Yeah.
Even if they're not buying, they're in going,
I just had to come see.
You hear that all the time. I just had to come see what's new. And they're just poking around. They usually will take one little thing home with them.
Right.
But
They can't resist.
They're strategizing. What am I going to do this spring? So anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Nice to see them come in. We also got in huge truckload today.
Yeah, I know.
I'm tired. I have to load the truck, but some really, really nice spring blooming trees.
Yeah.
And now is the time to be putting those in the ground so that they bloom in your yard and you get to enjoy the blooms off of them this year. So we got some great Oklahoma red buds in a few different sizes. That's that tree that has that bright pink blossom.
That's another fragrant tree, an edible tree. So red buds are beautiful.
We got the Oklahoma, and we also got some Merlots, which Oklahomas have a really nice green leaf to them, and the Merlot has more of a burgundy leaf to it, but they both bloom that really bright pink blossom.
Yeah.
So a lot of nice ones of those in all different sizes. We got the KV plum in, which is another, it's a good standard tree for here. It is tough as nails.
What's the Latin name on that?
Crowder Vesuvius.
Yeah, that's it.
Something.
Crowder,
I always call it Vesuvius, but I don't think that's
we just call it KV. That's good enough. So don't even try.
So that has that lighter pink blossom, but it blooms and then it puts on more of a burgundy leaf.
Yeah.
So it's a nice tree to mix into our yard where maybe you have a lot of just green stuff.
Or blue, just
Or
nothing but blue, like oaks.
Yeah.
Like scrub oaks.
So it's really nice contrast with things out there. Lots of really cool crab apples. Two new ones that we got in. One, they call it ivory spear, and the other one's raspberry spear. But they are probably going to get 18, 20 foot tall. But if you don't have enough space for a wide one, these get about 7 to 8 feet wide.
Oh, perfect for
So,
a patio.
yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That side yard is so tight sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you don't want it going over under your neighbor.
Absolutely.
But really cool trees. They look fabulous. Look fun to try.
I can't wait to see that. I haven't seen them. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. So one has a white blossom. The other has that dark pink blossom.
I want it to be purple, orange. I want a crab apple with orange flowers. They glows in the dark. That blooms year round. No,
not yet. We're still waiting for that one. But we did get the other crab. We got some prairie fires in. We got some perfect purple crab apples in. And crab apples are that's another tree that just
it's old fashioned, but really it's old fashioned. Your grandparents planted it for a reason because it was so easy to care for. The brightest of all the spring blooming trees, and the new varieties have just these tiny, cutest little crab apples that are just so cute.
They're itty bitty, but the birds love them. Yeah. So if you're planting for the birds, those are great. Kwanzaa cherries, which is an ornamental cherry. A couple of really nice sizes of those in. What else did we get? We got some more 4-in-1 apples and some 4-in-1 pears. Yeah. So we got and 3-in-1 cherries. Really nice quality, nice beefy trunks, look really good. Aspen. We got our first load of aspen in. What else did we get? Let me think. Autumn blaze maples.
Big ones, I hope. We need some big ones.
We got some big ones. We got some birch in as well. Some nice Jack Monte birch, which has that real white bark to it that people love. Yeah. So some really cool stuff to come in and check out.
So we had a plant drop. So we let folks see what was coming last week or the week before. And we had the cocktail trees. Basically, it's grafted multiple fruit trees on one trunk. And we sold out that day. And so we did not see that coming. And so people are going, there's pent up demand. So we found some more. So if you were part of that, sorry, we're trying to let folks jump to the front of the line and grab them early. They did more so than we thought. This week it's peonies. So we got some funky new, just really cool. You'll be the only one in the area that has this peony flower. Your grandparents dreamed of having this. They are going right now. And then stay tuned. We have a tomatoes, like I think 100 tomatoes coming up for us. Yeah. You can pre-order them, I think the first week in March. And then they'll show up, I think, the first week in April. I don't know all the timing. Don't quote me on that. But you'll want to grab that early. So it's waiting for you because we're going to run out. I mean, immediately.
So you're buying them ahead of time and then they come in later.
Yeah. Otherwise, people coming in like we had them, but then we're out and people will get frustrated. And well, how can we do this? We just go, don't wait, just get them now and they'll be waiting for you. Your name will be on one.
Okay.
So there you go.
Nice.
We're out of time like that. So it's time to put trees in.
It is.
Blooming
the
trees.
Spring blooming trees.
Lots of them. So Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardener. Waters Garden companion plants in February are peony, lily of the valley, pinyon pines, and Calgary carpet juniper.
Calgary carpet juniper shows rich green mounds of juniper beauty that grows ankle high for the perfect ground cover.
An ideal choice for low water, low care erosion control on natural banks or to soften that rock lawn.
The perfect green nestled between boulders or to soften the top edge of a retaining wall. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show.
All right, so we have got to prepare for the landscape to wake up. And so I alluded to this a little bit at the bottom of the hour. You had to get ready. Your soils had to get ready. Put the trees and shrubs in the ground before they wake up. If you're thinking of fruit trees, get them. You should feel urgency. Get them in right away. Sooner the better. Big trees like evergreens, pine, spruce, fir. If you've got a privacy screen going down the length of your property, you need to put those in now. It will greatly maximize this year's spring. You get far more growth out of those plants by planting them before the spring season actually hits. So don't wait. Anyway, that's enough of that. Won't harp on it because now you'll feel bad. But what you should do is feed the landscape. Everything in the yard should be fed. And I got a little caveat for you. We're starting to see bugs. So I've got 3 things for you to really watch after, 2 tasks you really need to do by the end of the month, by the middle of March. I've got 2-3 weeks to get this done, but you should get it out there right now. And so you should fertilize everything in the landscape. And if you're just tuned into this, let me be very specific. You don't want to just use anything. Get rid of that synthetic junk that the box store has. You don't want that in your yard. If you're on a well, you can poison yourself. And if you're not on the well, you can poison the rest of us. That stuff is so water soluble. The second we get any moisture, which March is famous for, it's going to pick most of that up and it's going to go down the dry washes. It's not going to go in the ground. Or it flushes through the soil so fast that the plants don't have time to pick it up. If you're tuned in the mountains of Arizona, you need to be using organic or all natural plant foods, which can be difficult to figure out. I get it. It's like this weird mix of bone meals and blood meals and feather meals and cottonseed meals. What do I do with this stuff? I just want good old fashioned synthetic, like petroleum based fertilizer. Give me some sort of steroid thing. Here's the benefit of all natural plant foods. Every time water hits them, they release just a little bit of food over like a 3-month period. So they take a much longer time to break down. And so the plants love that. They like feeding a little bit over a long period. And here's the real benefit. Synthetic fertilizers, they burn up your worms, everything good in the soil, they just burn it away. So it's chemicals, very hot. So they get rid of your mycorrhizal colonies, your beneficial insects that are in the soil that are helping the symbiotic relationship with your plants. There's this whole magical thing that happens in the ground that's good, that synthetics kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step, or 2 steps back, 3 steps back. You really want to use organic or all natural foods. Now, all of a sudden, you're fertilizing the plant and the good stuff in the soil too. Your worms will feed off of this cottonseed meal and bird guanos and this good stuff that's in this bag. And we've made it simple for you. It's all pelletized. It's dry, pre-mix. You don't have to mix anything up yourself. We did all the math, all the mixing, we curated all the elements. So just spread it. A bag will cover 2,000 square feet. We've made it so easy. Spread it over top of the rock. It will just go, don't have to work it in the soil. It will go through the rock, go through the fabric, go through the ground, and just magically become available to the plant. What you can do is get it on the landscape. And we're talking almost the entire yard. So a tree, you're going to do the entire drip system, as we call it. So if you're standing straight and you hold your hands straight out, so your trunk is your body, and then that outer branch, that's the drip line, your outer arms, that far reaching, that's where the drip line is. And the most important roots of that plant are at the farthest edges of that plant, or the farthest edge of the drip line. That's where you want to focus your fertilizer, because that's where the fine root hairs are. Up close to real close to the trunk at the base of this shrub are big anchoring roots. They're great big chubby barky roots. They can't take in water and they can't take in food. They just simply hold the plant upright in a windstorm. Your feeder roots are further out. So focus your fertilizing out there. That's a mistake I find rookies make. They're putting this, they got this 5-year-old tree. You got a beautiful pear tree or apple tree, and they're putting all the food right there at the trunk when the feeder roots are further out. Focus, sprinkle, it looks salt and peppered out there towards the drip line of that plant. You'll get better flowers on your roses, better flowers on your lilacs and forsythias and quince and all those things that bloom. Fertilize now. If I know they're not quite in leaf, but they will be within days, get the food on before, especially organic fertilizers, get it on before they actually leaf out. And so we make 2 here at the garden center. The original is 744 all-purpose plant food. It's cottonseed meal, bird guano. We put some iron and sulfur in it. We call it all natural. For you folks that are hardcore organics, I don't even want iron in my food. I don't want any sulfur. I don't care how the pH acts. I just want organic. We've got that too. We call it vegetable and fruit tree food. So it's just, there's no minerals in it. As soon as you put a mineral into a fertilizer, you can't call it organic. So you can call it natural, but you can't call it organic. But if you just stick with the meals, so the cotton meal, the blood goods, blood meals, and that kind of stuff, now you've got a all organic. That's good for fruit trees. So we call it 6447 organic fruit and vegetable food. Okay. That's what it's called. And so it's pelletized. And so you spread that out on the yard, and the plants, it'll break down. The plants will pick it up as it needs it. As we get snow, as we get rain, as it goes through the root zone, it'll kind of pick up the stuff and go, yummy. Sounds good. I'm going to leaf out. We call it 6447 because we know that you're going to struggle with calcium deficiencies. It's something that we have, high alkalinity soils. It locks up the calcium that's in that's available to the plant. So we're going to juice the plant, your soil, the root zone around that plant, so it picks up more calcium. That will make sure your fruit size is larger, sweeter. You won't have blossom indrots on your tomatoes and your peppers. This is a black spot that forms where the flower was. That's a classic calcium deficiency. Well, if we know that you're going to struggle with that here in northern Arizona because of the water issue that we have, this high alkalinity, well, let's just juice it so you don't have those problems. And so you put it out there, just breaks down, and away you go. Now, the thing, it always comes up, well, how far down do I need to work this fertilizer on this plant food? You don't have to work it at all. It will break down. The plant will be, consistency is the key. Get it down there several times a year. We're thinking around Easter. So March sometime. You want to be around the 4th of July. So that's when the rainy season starts in the summer. That's when everything, you get a whole nother set of growth then. The most important feeding is around Halloween. So it's using that food last fall. It's using that food to bloom this spring. Now they've taken all that food. Now they're gonna need some more. So you're putting it back on in spring. And so that's kind of your system. So you're thinking Easter, 4th of July, Halloween. If you think holidays, and if you miss that, come see us. We got a handout. Go to our website, watersgardencenter.com. Type in plant foods. It'll come right up for you. But we try to make it real easy. Spread it out there. For the love of gardening, please do not waste your time, energy, or garden dollars on Miracle-Gro. That junk does not fertilize your plants. It's not good where we have high alkalinity. And maybe for a container, but we get so many minerals in our soil already, in our water, that this is a salt-based fertilizer that just juices your containers so that you get this heavy, white, cakey buildup around the containers. That is not good for your plants. And it's really not good for things in the yard. It clogs up the soil. So stay away from that water-soluble, mainly the salt-based Miracle-Gro stuff. It's the #1 selling fertilizer in the country. But you don't want to use it. My friends, I don't want you to use that in your yard because you'll just do more damage than good. Use a good, organic, granular fertilizer over the entire drip line of everything in the yard. The grass, the perennials, the flowers, the trees, the shrubs, all of it. Water's garden companion plants of February are Calgary carpet juniper, lily of the valley, pinyon pines, and peony.
Your grandmother would fall in love with these larger peony with so many colors to choose from.
There's nothing like the enormous flowers to add stunning pops of color.
Endearing springtime blooms are more than fragrant with luscious double flowers. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.
So getting your garden soils ready, and this is probably, I guess there's 2 ways to go about this. If you're traditionally going into a garden, let's say a main vegetable garden out there in the yard, that's different than, let's say, a raised bed or a container garden. So there's kind of a different approach to those. If it's a container, you don't really need to add manures and that kind of stuff. It's too hot for this small roots container size or pot size. So there we're just doing fresh potting soil. What happens is the plants will actually use up the soil. So you'll literally see soil disappear. It'll shrink. You're going, oh, it blew away. Where did it go? What's happening? Well, the plants are actually using or gobbling up the soil. And so you need to replenish some of that. Do it now. So I'll top my containers off and I'll leave about an inch from the top so that I've got room to water. And then I'm all set. And then I'll fertilize on top of that. I'll usually put a handful of all-purpose plant food, 744 food, on top of that, and you're good to go. Or if there's nothing in that bed at all, nothing in that container, and you're just potting all new, let's say lettuce or all new a tomato or all new, then you're probably going to take a piece of a layer of that soil out of there where all the old roots were from last year. Dig some of that out. Be aggressive. You want to add some freshness, at least to the depth of the root zone of whatever you're going to be planting. If it's potatoes, something like that, you're probably going to, deeper is better. Replace it all. And so if it's lighter, shallower stuff, you're seeding some radishes, maybe just the top 8 to 12 inches is good enough. But add some freshness. In raised beds, okay, you've put some block or some pavers or some lumber, and you're retaining some soil in there because your ground is just so bad out there. They're just, again, same thing. Get a couple bags of potting soil, and I wouldn't mix it in. I just lay it on top, and you want to plant inside that new fresh potting soil. Out in the yard, it's different. This is when you use manure. This is your best season. So you're getting, just spread a 2 to 3 inch layer of manure out there over the entire soil planting garden area. And then you want to mix that into the soil, that last year's soil, about 1 shovel's depth or 1 rototiller depth. Okay, so while you're doing that, while you're turning that manure into the last year's soil, freshening, adding some vigor, some vitality back into the soil, you want to add some fertilizer at the same time. There, if it's edible stuff, get a bag of the fruit and vegetable food. It's all organics, pelletized. Usually I'll put my manure down, I'll put my fertilizer down, and then I'll start digging it up. Just turning it under. If you run into some old roots from last year, dig those things out. If the trees are growing into this area, dig that stuff out. Roots are not good. Things that are not composted already are not good. You want to compost those off to the side and then reintroduce them back in the gardens as they have composted together this rich, chocolatey, kind of coffee ground looking dark, rich mocha color to it. So if they haven't broken down yet, they'll take fertilizer to help themselves break down right there in the garden soil. So they'll take it from the plants and use it for itself. You don't want that. You want all that food available for your potatoes, for your lettuce, your kales, your cabbages, all that early spring planting, for your radishes. So that's kind of how you get garden soils ready for the yard. And we've got all that stuff ready for you. And for the love of gardening, don't use gross, disgusting manure. We've deodorized all of ours so it doesn't stink so bad. Use that instead for your gardens. Here at Waters Garden Center. Waters Garden companions of February are peony, Calgary carpet, juniper, pinyon pines, and lily of the valley.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.